Last week we pulled off the flywheel to see if anything was wrong with the clutch assembly, and nothing was wrong with it. So I'm going to go ahead and reapply some paint to the balance marks and get this all reassembled. First step is to clean up the crankshaft taper and the flywheel with some 4/0 steel wool before applying a little bit of talc powder to make sure it doesn't seize in the future. Then I'm going to load in the pressure plate and clutch disc before setting the flywheel in. I'm going to tap the key into place, and with a little bit of wiggle you get that satisfying click. You know that you're installed. Then comes the lock tab and the bolt. Give that bolt a good tug with the torque wrench and pray to Jesus that you did it up enough. Once you've made your piece, it's time to fold over the lock tab on the bolt, and that is good to go. I then put the diaphragm spring back on, torquing the bolts correctly, and reinstalled the walk.
So I put this all back together, and I really thought I had it figured out. I thought that the piston inside the slave cylinder was just hitting the circlip and I needed to shim it. So I do that, and long story short, it just pushes the arm further and further away from the walk. Really, confused. So I just pulled the arm out. This is exactly how it came out. It's completely sheared off.
So the reason this wasn't obvious to me in the beginning is because that nub is actually still held on by a good bit of metal. I can't actually push it over with my thumb. It's on there pretty good. It wasn't until I fixed that clevis and shimmed the slave cylinder that the hydraulic force had enough to open up that crack even further and further.
You're supposed to check these kind of things first before you do what I just did and replace the entire hydraulic system, pull the flywheel off, check out the clutch. I basically took everything apart before checking the obvious things you're supposed to check, because I figured, hey, I put this in, when I put it back together a number of years ago, and I bought the heavy-duty one.
That's not exactly true. The current version is marketed as stronger, not necessarily heavy-duty, but it only lasted 7 years, which is rather disappointing given that I went to the trouble of painting it to match the engine. To avoid this failure in the future, I went with the nuclear option. This is a race-quality, tough-rided clutch arm kit made of EN24T. Now, if we know anything about steel, once you start saying acronyms, all it can be is awesome.
Alright, I got the press set up. The little adjustment nut is perfect to fit in the press, top tip. It's a little wet here because I shoved it in the freezer for an hour just to cool it down, shrink this a little bit, make this a bit easier. We're going to grease this bad boy up, and I think we're just going to get it right on there. Got the BNF, big nut f***er.
Just going to double check that everything's lined up before we give it hell, and for some reason I had the foresight to wear safety glasses.
Alright, that's on there. Feels good.
After getting some practice in for my proctology exam, I went ahead and got this finished up. Better too much than too little. I got the walk assembly back on and somehow didn't forget to put the grounding strap on the engine. Finally, we can refit the starter, sanding the connections a little bit, and we're ready to test.
Alright, let's see. Let's see if it did it. Clutch in. We got reverse. Almost stalled it because it's a little cold. Hello. Hello. Ayo. All right. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Good stuff. So that's it then. It's fixed. After all that. Now to do an oil change.